The US is number one in the world for fatal drug overdoses in the whole world. So this is the situation that people are having to try to understand and cope with. And so when we talk about the material basis for the lack of trust in institutions, but then again, how nature abhors a vacuum, and in the absence of any mass socialist party, mass communist party, then all kinds of different ideas can fill that vacuum and people will gravitate towards whatever it is they can find that seems to provide some kind of stability or some kind of hope, or maybe even a weight lifted off their shoulders in a sense.
Yeah, one of the early adopters of these new apps that's coming out with the astrology dating apps and et cetera was saying...
Wait, astrology dating app?
Yeah.
How's that work?
Because you match according to your star sign, right?
Okay.
Your compatible star sign. The article is saying, and this is a quote, for the godless or the spiritually unaffiliated, it offers assurance of larger forces. Astrology can make you a part of something big while sweetly taking destiny out of your hands. Bigger forces are at work, and those forces are benevolent, which can be a comfort to someone living a secular life.
So you might not have a god, but your new god is going to become this astrology app. It's kind of dystopian too, that like a god is now like an algorithm in an app or whatever. But it also shows the reactionary nature too of this, because it's explicitly saying like, it's not up to you, and someone else is taking care of it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, and let's not forget, this is a capitalist enterprise, right? There are these huge mining companies that operate in Madagascar, where most of the crystals for crystal therapy are found. And more than 80% of these crystals are mined artisanally, meaning by small groups, families, without any regulation. So child labor, free game, all of this paid at rock bottom prices. And this is a growing industry. In 2023, the mystical and psychic services market was valued at $2.8 billion, up from $2.2 billion in 2018. And I saw this report on the online psychic services, which grew really rapidly after the pandemic. It said traditional skepticism about consulting psychics has waned, with more consumers embracing these services, especially in times of uncertainty. The pandemic significantly boosted demand for services as many turned to spiritual guidance to navigate their anxieties about health, finances, and the loss of loved ones. So these psychics are basically profiting off of people's grief and their way of trying to manage the uncertainty in the world. The report notes that the number of psychics has grown so significantly in the past period. The people that are born with the gift or the sight, just they obey the law of supply and demand, I guess.
Yeah, I guess in times of crisis, the number of people with the gift just magically increases. And this shows, I mean, you can have all these lofty ideas about these crystals with these mystical powers. At the end of the day, they're material things as well. They don't come from just a world of ideas, and they need to be mined with very, very exploited human labor. So, of course, there's also the hypocrisy that goes along with it. Although I will add that if you look at the Catholic Church or some of these churches at their peak, probably their share of wealth and control over society was a lot greater than these industries. But that's a lot of money, and that's a rising industry that you're describing. But what's interesting to me is, yeah, like you said, the things that they're quoting, the reason why people are going to these psychics is concerns over healthcare and rent and incomes and housing, and ultimately it comes down to bread and butter issues, and also not just bread and butter, although I would say that's
the
probably
economy.
That's the starting point of it. I think it's like if people had a better life, they probably wouldn't be so worried about that, but also the search for a meaning in life that seems meaningless, where people seem to have no control over what they do in their day-to-day. You might work for a boss, you're exploited, and like to you, like what's the point of it? You're just going to work to enrich your boss ultimately, and it's like that search for meaning. I think it's natural in humans. There was an article on the Wall Street Journal that said that sales of Bibles are booming, fueled by first-time buyers. And they cited the reason for the increase in Bible sales was worries about the economy, conflicts abroad, and uncertainty over the election. that pushed readers to want to like find something like the Bible, which apparently Bible sales are up 22% in the US through the end of last year. So that's a pretty significant increase. But also you can see a very clear example of in the sort of cynical way that religion ends up being used. There was another article by the New York Times titled "A Bible Study for the Homeless, A Search for Meaning." So it was describing how there's a lot of obviously a record number of homeless people in the US, again, a country that has 6 million empty vacant homes. And yet there's, I think, something like 700,000 homeless people, at least in this country, that don't have any dignity, any basics of life. And so they go to these shelters, and the article says they come hungry and sick. They seek meals, showers, clothes, jobs, and connections to healthcare and housing. Some also come to talk about God. That's how the article was describing it. And one of the volunteers at this shelter said their faith is raw. It's part of their survival. I.e., these people are so desperate that they have nothing else to cling to than religion. But here's the comment that really stuck out to me from this article. This is a homeless center that has a $2.9 million budget in Fairfax County, which is apparently one of the most unequal counties, is one of the country's richest counties. And the article says, but few of them express class anger or ask why God permits their suffering. I.e., people go here and they find God and they don't ask the tough questions like, why are there so many rich people in this county and why are we so poor? So explicitly this shows how this can actually be used as an outlet to divert potential class anger and class rage. As we saw, there's probably unprecedented levels of class rage in the US. You saw that with the response to the killing of United Healthcare CEO. And it's pretty convenient for the ruling class if people start to instead seek solace in God instead of expressing their class rage in whichever way.